Right. Okay. Cool. So there was obviously four. So over for the actual narrative of the day, there were four different planes. Once again, for anyone that doesn't know about 9/11, two hit the World Trade Center, one hits the Pentagon, and one crashes in an open field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. So we're gonna first focus on American Flight 11. So American Flight 11 leaves Logan to go into LA. At 7:59, it's got 92 people on board. So it takes off with no delays. 15 minutes later, the hijackers take over. I forgot to mention this in the first episode, actually, but also apparently those specific days, I think Tuesdays and Thursdays were the lightest travel days. So they would have like the least amount of people, less amount of security,
Right.
all that stuff, like in order to take over a plane and whatnot. As everyone knows, the hijackers, they had box cutters. They had I don't know if they had any other small blades.
No, just
But
box
everything.
cutters. They had mace too.
Mace, that's what I was thinking of. So the hijackers take over American Flight 11 at 8:14. 5 minutes later, flight attendant Betty Ong actually made an AT&T phone call, which is super interesting because I didn't know that you could make phone calls from an airline at that point, like in 2001.
Right.
So she calls the Southeastern Reservation Office. She reported like noxious gas. The first person that actually died in these attacks, everyone, was a guy named Daniel Lemon. And it was very interesting because he was actually a former Israeli commander. So just something really interesting. So at this point, Muhammad Atta lies over the intercom saying he's going to turn the plane around.
And I actually just sent you that. Can you pull that up? Type in Muhammad Atta voice Reddit.
In the meantime, while you look that up, I was going to go over the form of how they got the money or how they transferred the money.
Oh, I never even. Yeah, please. Sorry.
So it was. It's called Halawa system, and it was an informal way to transfer funds. Essentially, it was money laundering. But pilots actually received between $400,000 and $500,000.
Right, I was aware of that.
Yeah, but it was all sent like through the Halawa system. Halawa.
Yeah. Okay.
That way it would couldn't be tracked.
Okay. Shane, I found something on YouTube. It's like just 20, 30 seconds. Do you want?
Yeah, pull that one up. So this is so this is him, and the funny thing is he thought he was communicating to the main cabin. He thought he was sending like an intercom message,
Right.
but he was sending this out as a transmission.
Oh,
so all
jeez.
the air traffic controllers picked this up. They're like, what the is this guy saying?
Right.
Because they didn't know it was a hijack, and they had some suspicion because the plane started deviating from its course.
Off course. Right.
It went off course, and then this basically flat out confirmed it.
Right. And so with this another time, so once again, as you said, 8:26 they start flying erratically. 8:32 another attendant Amy Sweeney gets on the phone and relays that the hijackers have a bomb. They obviously didn't. They were lying about it, but at that point, they're just using whatever they can to calm down the people or to get them from attacking. Yeah. And then 8:34, 2 minutes later, Sweeney says something is wrong. We're flying low, and then Flight 11, piloted by Atta, hits the North Tower at 8:46 a.m. between the 93rd and 99th floors. And so here, viewer discretion advised, but this is actually from we referenced this earlier, the Naday Bros documentary.
The only clear video of the first plane hitting, by the way, that I've seen.
Yep.
In the research.
So there's a fireman.
They're looking at like a gas leak right now. Very ordinary stuff they see all the time. And then, boom.
Wow.
Dude, look at that flame ball.
Just
imagine that, man. And going back to Dan, what you said about how big the plane is, think about it. Its impact zone was 7 floors.
Yep.
So like
It was also kind of going in at an angle, so you had that wingspan, but you see all that burning fuel is just insane.
yeah. No.
And that's why like everyone jumped out because it was so hot. So
Yeah.
they'd rather just commit suicide than have to suffer.
Which is how tragic is that, dude?
Yeah.
I think that's the worst aspect of 9/11 because like they made there's a segment called The Falling Man where it's a guy who jumped outside, one of the first guys to jump, and you look at that picture, you're like, they're making light of this, but this is completely
Yeah,
messed.
like easy for you to say. Like that's the one thing. Like I was telling my parents this when I was mentioning that I was going to film this, and imagine if a 9/11 happened like today. Say if it was in New York, dude. Even regardless of how terrible it would be, people would be freaking filming on TikTok.
Oh yeah,
Snapchat.
news agency would be pulling up, trying to be the first to report it. Yeah.
Oh,
It'd be
absolutely.
chaos.
Just disgusting, and it's actually funny. So when the hijackers actually overtook Flight 11, that's when United Flight 157, carrying 66 people, takes off. So when the first one gets hijacked, the second one is embarking. So 842, 846, the hijackers take over, and this once again, don't care much about their names, but the guy that specifically piloted this plane was Marwan El-Shehi. And then at 8:47, Al-Shehi, he changes the transponder codes to the plane. So this basically, from what I looked up, hides their speed and their radar. And so so United Flight 175 deviates for their assigned flight plan like 3 minutes later. And then so even though they changed the transponder codes, they never fully they never turned off the transponder, so they were actually tracking the plane, but they didn't. At this point, it was so quickly out. Because that's the thing, when you're also picture if you're like in like a tower, like, or you're in a building that's like monitoring all the planes, like the minutes and seconds are everything, you know. And once again, the episode of the documentary, 102 minutes. Especially the only plane in the sky, the book just talks about all the back and forth that people are having. Like, oh, did we actually have? And they originally thought the first plane it was an accident.
Yeah, they thought it was like a civilian plane. They didn't realize it was a commercial airliner. They're like, oh, they accidentally hit the World Trade Center. And dude, the immediate response is like one thing I'll give like a lot of credit on. Even though they weren't able to save a lot of people, they responded to the scene very quickly. And set up
there's only so much you can do.
There's right.
Like that's where like people I just don't
Because
common sense and rational.
Right, because if you think about how large the New York Fire Department and Police Department are,
isn't it like 8,000 people? Or
so many
something
people,
crazy?
but it's like the magnitude of this, they can't even pool their efforts to stop it because it's once it gets to that point, you can't do anything about it, dude.
Yeah.
You get people out, and that's it. That's all you can do. You can't even. I don't even think you can stop because they tried to get helicopters to the top of it, but it's.
I do have a video of that later.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
can
So
show you.
I won't talk about.
No,
that.
no, it's fine. It's in like 4K. It's been remastered and whatever. So, and then so one of the documentaries, like I said, it's called 9/11, the new Pearl Harbor, and so this one specifically, many elements of this documentary. It's like a 4.5 hour documentary on YouTube. It's very like it's a little out there, and they imply some things that I personally don't agree with, but it is, be it as it may to say. So Al-Shehi, so he almost hit 3 airlines like before he hit even this plane in the way of.
Yeah, he almost collided with them.
Yeah.
Because the air traffic controller had to tell him like turn right now to the other plane.
Right, and also 5 minutes before, like eight, so they hit the tower at 9:02, but 5 minutes before at 8:57, 8:58, he was at 28, almost like 29,000 feet, and then he plummeted between 5,000 and 10,000 feet per minute. I think that's what the FPM stands for, and the average descent of a passenger plane, from according to like this documentary and a couple things I looked up. I should double check with Keegan, but the average descent of those planes should be 2,000 feet.
Yeah.
So this is just this absolute dive.
And think about that. Say you're in a plane, you get a little bit of turbulence, you bump around a little bit. Think about what those people like what their bodies were doing when they're literally descending.
Also the pressure too.
Right.
The pressure change.
Oh, I didn't even think about that
Yeah.
either. Yeah. So the south towers hit, um, but surprisingly, actually, the building had one entire stairwell that stayed intact until it later collapsed.
Right, and it impacted between floors 78 and 83. And the thing about the second plane, it impacted at a weird angle. It was like diagonal.
Yeah.
So this wing was up here, hit the floors up here, then this wing cut across like that. So yeah, we can see it here. You'll see it comes in like that. See?
Wow.
So
insane.
insane. It hits a couple floors lower than the north tower, but remarkably, like Ben said, there was one stairwell.
That's just mind-boggling to me. And one thing too, like for me, Dan, is like when I see this, like especially once the plane hits, it's weird when it actually goes to hit it almost seems like the building like envelops the plane and then inside it explodes instead of it immediately hitting in it. But obviously it's traveling at I think 500
miles per hour. Yeah.
So just something absolutely freaking ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And so, anyways, with all this, it's absolutely nuts, like how this occurred. And so so that was that's the second flight. So flight 77 took off from Dulles at 8:28 a.m. This carried 64 people. They were headed to LA, and their last message was at 8:51. And the hijacking had deviated the course 3 minutes later. Once again, there's a lot of like specifically with the timeline. That's why I'm looking a little bit more intensely at the notes. But 9:16 to 9:26, this woman Barbara Olson calls, and all passengers are forced to the back of the plane. So and then at 9:37, the Pentagon is hit. So the Pentagon was 77 feet tall. 125 Pentagon people were killed.
And it was Flight 77.
Yeah. Did I not say that earlier?
Did they do that on purpose, you think? No.
Oh, no.
77.
Whoa, Dan. Whoa, I see where you're getting at. You have a point.
Good call.
So, once again, the whole, like I said, it's a 4.5 hour documentary, but it does have, but the Pearl Harbor, the new 9/11 has this thing where they interview all these different pilots, military, commercial, and this turn that also Hani Hanjour did was considered an incredible flight maneuver where he did it like it says here a 330-degree turn at 500 knots.
Right.
While ascending, so he went up like this and then he whipped it around like that. And so and one of the interesting things is that for Hani Hanjour, out of all of the 4 pilots, he was a atrocious pilot. Like he was, I think it was him and Sheikhy that were openly not caring of how to land the plane.
Oh yeah.
And but it's just like this documentary specifically hones in on the fact that like after what's the word? Interviewing the instructors and whatever. They're like, this guy could not fly planes. We have no clue how he even had his license. It was just insane. Okay. All right, sorry guys, we lost the last like 30 seconds. So what was the last quick thing that you were saying, Shane?
Oh, did it not get the wedge one thing I was talking about?
Yeah, just repeat yourself really quick.
Yeah, so I and then Dan will say his thing. Yep. But no, I was just saying, out of this tragedy, one like good thing to make, not good, but one of the less bad things is the Pentagon plane that crashed into the Pentagon, Flight 77. It crashed into Wedge 1 of the Pentagon, and that was the newly renovated part. So there was way less people in that wedge.
There were supposed to be 4,500, and there was only 800 people.
800 people. So it ultimately led to less casualties, which is like a good thing.
The conspiracy theory is that like there should have been people there and there wasn't. But I don't agree to that at all. Of course.
The other conspiracy theory is that it was a missile, not a plane.
We'll get to that in like I said at the end.
Oh, you already.
Well, that's fine.
Okay.
Like I said, it all like ties in and whatever. All right. So for the last plane, so United 93. Oh well, after this is actually the picture of. So there's only like one camera angle of this specific
which I feel like
hitting the Pentagon.
Should be way more.
There should be.
I feel like
way
they're not releasing it.
Right. It's like a security footage.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. This right here.
Yeah, and it's like
cameras were really good back in the day.
The frames per second is.
This is the top security building in the entire world. So once again, if anyone wants, go like 2 hours into the 9/11, the new Pearl Harbor, and it breaks down everything that's not right with this picture.
Yeah,
and then
see,
you
it's
get the
just
explosion.
you see a flash of energy.
So when people do mention that, I think it's just interesting how, that is the one time, like, not all the planes were missiles, obviously, but that, I'm just saying, it's weird. So there was a gas station across the street that there were 80 cameras, I guess, that that captured this the goings on here of the plane hitting that tower or the that building, and the FBI confiscated 80, I think about 80 to 89 different video cameras, and they weren't released.
Weird.
So it doesn't really make sense. So going down now to Flight 93. So United 93 was delayed till 8:42. So 4 minutes before the first impact, that's when it took off, and they were flying to Newark to Francisco. So they were the only flight that wasn't going to L.A. So at 9:28, the hijackers take over, and this is when Zaid Jarrah is the pilot. 2 minutes later, like, passengers start making phone calls to families, and at 9:31, Jarrah makes a statement over the intercom similar to Atta, where he goes, "We have a bomb on board. We're going back to the airport. Please remain quiet." And it was really interesting because one of the guys that ended up rushing the plane, this guy Tom Burnett, through correspondence that he had, I think it was his wife or one of his family members, he believed the bomb threat was a ruse to keep everyone at the back of the plane.
Right.
So he's like mentioning this to someone on the phone before he even takes the before they do that heroic act. So at 10:03, also interesting, right before they crashed. So Flight 93 was the only plane to activate a distress signal. So just like another weird fact. At 10:03, the flight crashes into Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and when I really looked at this too, I was just horrified by how it happened. Is that they were flying at almost 600 miles an hour, upside down, and so basically the last couple.
Yeah, the passengers wouldn't have felt. I mean, no one felt anything, but they were the only passengers to revolt against the hijackers,
right.
which is great. That shows like the American spirit.
Yeah, and I couldn't even be more like once again, obviously it's well known. The "Let's Roll" comment by Todd Beamer, and Todd Beamer. This other guy, Tom Burnett, and then there was two others.
Yeah, and it talks about those guys in this book. And so they were slamming like a carriage, right, almost into the cockpit door.
Apparently, one of the flight attendants tried to take boiled water and throw it.
Yeah,
just like absolute chaos in this building or in this plane. And as they were like making this flight and whatever, like they started throwing the plane so that the citizens couldn't get in.
And there's documented like the last statements from the pilot. He's like, "Take it down now," in Arabic.
And so that was Bin Laden's. That like if they couldn't crash into so apparently that plane was supposed to go arguably it's
the White House. You think
is probably the White House?
Yeah.
But it's There's once again we'll get a conspiracy theories later.
And right before that, well, probably while they were fighting, that's when the South Tower fell or collapsed.
Basically, so and another interesting fact too is this Colonel Robert Marr, who was the commander-in-chief of the Northeast Defense Sector. The military only had 4 planes that were prepared to defend the West Coast at the current time because they were also military exercises were happening. But for some reason, not for this specific. Once again, I'm no historian or expert, but it's just absolutely insane. So, and at this time, after the first plane hit, they thought the casualties were going to be 40,000.